Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that you guys could not hear a darn thing I was saying. Let me back up a little bit and then we'll just jump right in again. Apologies for that. And I appreciate your patience with me. We're 8 minutes in and I plan to definitely be finished before 10:30. So I will kind of slide through these quickly. I'm Rhonda, your mobility maestro with DMI Managed Services. I mentioned that I actually don't have visibility into my chat. So if you said you couldn't hear me, apologies. I didn't even see it. Anything that you put in the chat, I promise you, I'll go back and take a look at it and answer any questions you have. You have my promise. So for years, I've been on the front row and seeing how enterprise mobility has scaled and how it's then quietly become complex just because of my background. So I help organizations bring harmony to those environments so scale doesn't turn into stress. So that's why we're here today, and that's what we're talking about. My goal in this series is simple, and I'm speeding through because I didn't realize you couldn't hear me. My goal in this series is simple. Let's just make it make sense. So welcome to week 2 of Coffee Time, Sips Up. As you see, as a quick reminder, there is a QR code to our playbook. That playbook is a 2026 State of Managed Mobility Services. It has been put together by my president, DJ Orup, and my CEO, Rocky Thurston. That QR code you're going to see maybe once or twice in the next couple of slides, and then you won't see it again until the end. So please do go ahead and scan that. It's chock full of what you guys need to know and what you need to know now. And also, if you want to learn more about me, you can get on my calendar. My link is on my LinkedIn page. You can book an appointment with me there, and I'm happy to dig in deeper and to speak with you about how I can help bring harmony to your company's mobility environment. Again, I appreciate your patience. But like I say, scale and growth, they're great, right? Growth is always awesome. But like I said, my job is to help you make it make sense. So let's skip right along. And in the interest of time, I know I've got to back up a couple of slides here. Again, appreciate your patience. What we're talking about today is a true cost of complexity. And so before we kick off our sips, I want to take a few minutes just to tell you one more time. This is going to be the last time you see that QR code. You'll see it, well, not the last time, but you'll see it again at the end of the presentation. So I do want you to take a minute and scan it if you haven't already. Again, you can also get on my calendar. You can type in the chat that you want a copy of that playbook, and I'll ensure that you have what you need to get a copy of that playbook. So moving right along, why these conversations exist. Why are we having these conversations? First, scale has increased. Organizations grew faster than their ability to track and manage what was being deployed. And second, complexity outpaced visibility. So more devices, more locations, more data, but not more clarity. And then third, the cost of not knowing, it actually went up. So uncertainty stopped being just inconvenient. It started becoming expensive. And when it starts becoming expensive, that's when you get leadership's attention, right? So enterprises are reassessing mobility, not because it failed, but because complexity has outpaced clarity, right? And that is the shift. And that's what we're going to be diagnosing today. All right, moving right along. We're getting caught up here. So diagnosing the cost of complexity. When mobility environments grow without structured visibility, 3 patterns seem to emerge consistently. And these patterns don't just explode overnight, right? They create friction over time, and together it just compounds and creates the stress that people responsible for the mobility environment, they feel that first, right? And so those 3 things are visibility drift, responsibility diffusion, and operational friction. And if you understand these 3 things, you'll understand where cost highs. And as you can see on the screen, visibility drift is you know your assets exist, but you can't see them clearly enough to manage them proactively. So you need some clarity into what you have, where you have it. Ownership is spread across teams, but accountability remains unclear. So everybody's got devices and everybody maybe even has their own cost center, but who's accountable for it? And then there's operational friction, which is the process that should be smooth, but becomes very slow and manual and error prone as you continue to scale. So on the next slide, we'll talk more about visibility drift at scale, right? So visibility drift happens when you think you have what you think you actually don't have, or it doesn't match what you actually have. Or maybe you simply have no idea what you actually have. And that's okay. I mean, as scale happens, you're a human being. And as it continues to grow and grow and grow, if things aren't planned properly, this happens to the best of us. It's subtle, it doesn't feel urgent until it does, right? And so there are three items we want to walk through really quickly around visibility drift at scale. One is inactive but active assets. If you're familiar with that, then you know it's like you've got lines, but they haven't been used in months, but they're still billing, or maybe they shouldn't have been used in months. Maybe you've got an employee that left the company that never returned the device and they're still using it. Or maybe you've got devices that are just sitting in a drawer somewhere or just God only knows where, but they're still billing, and that's the issue. Then there's delayed usage insight. You don't see usage patterns until after the billing cycle closes. Like that's really a tough time to find out that you're having overages, right? So that's a doozy, and that's easily fixed with real-time visibility. And there's fragmented data. So information exists across carriers, vendors, internal systems, but not in one place. Again, it's an easy fix with a platform that integrates your data, right? And so limited visibility remains one of the largest drivers of unnecessary costs and risk. Simply put, you not only need to know, you've got to know. I repeat, you've got to know. So, like I said, it's not dramatic. It's a pattern recognition, right? If if this is under your purview and you see this happening, I would say to you, stop everything and fix it. I got a question for you guys. If leadership asks you for a clean inventory report right now, how fast could you produce it? You can drop it in the chat or just answer it for yourself. And if you can't produce it right away, you need to stop everything and fix it. All right, we're going to move along to responsibility diffusion. So you've heard that old saying that when everything's a priority, nothing's a priority, right? Well, it's the same with responsibility. When everyone is responsible, who's really responsible? Ownership gaps. They don't look chaotic. They kind of look like teamwork. They look collaborative, right? Until something breaks and then the finger pointing starts. And so I broke this up into two categories. There's life cycle ownership. So who manages the provisioning, decommissioning, and policy updates? If the answer isn't clear, then decisions do stall. And then there's billing ownership. So finance sees the invoice, IT sees the usage, but who reconciles? And who has the authority to act? And even if you know who reconciles, how hard is it for them to reconcile? How much time is it taking them? And how much is that time costing your organization? And then there's incident ownership. When something breaks, who responds? Who escalates? Who owns resolution and speed? These are questions that need to be answered expeditiously. And so I'm going to insert a little story, or actually, I'm going to reach back to a story we spoke about last week. We spoke about companies that have multiple thousands of locations, and maybe they've deployed a wireless internet solution. And so they've got SIM cards in each of those locations. It's in some type of a device, like a Cradle Point or Meraki or something like that, right? But they scaled so quickly that maybe they haven't properly organized that environment. And then the connection goes down. Remember what we talked about downtime? As we said last week, over 90% of estimated downtime costs exceed $300,000 per hour, and nearly half of those exceed $1 million per hour. Some even exceed $5 million per hour. I can't wrap my mind around it. I don't know about you, but I certainly can't. And even if we scale that back, let's say your organization is doing nowhere near those numbers. Let's scale that down to a $50,000 per hour downtime cost. In 8 hours, that's still $400,000. Remember the $14,000 a minute we talked about last week? That's not technical inconvenience. You guys, that's leadership exposure. And when leadership feels exposure, they want answers. And that's me putting it kindly. Let's skip to operational friction. So even well-intentioned processes can break down with scale, right? Because friction accumulates. And I want to walk through these three items here. We've got handoff breakdowns, right? Procurement orders something. IT receives something slightly different, and finance pays for something else. Like there's just a disconnect there. And then there's documentation drift. CMDB says one thing, your carrier portal says another. In reality, it lives somewhere in between. And then there are those renewal surprises, right? Contracts auto renew, plans roll over, spend increases, promotions and discounts disappear, and no one notices it until the invoice hits. Operational friction doesn't look dramatic either. It looks manageable until it compounds. So, how many handoffs occur in your organization before resolution? These are just it's just food for thought. All right. So we're about to wrap this up. Just a couple more slides here. We'll talk quickly about the enterprise impact, right? Complexity doesn't just create operational headaches, it creates measurable costs. So the financial cost looks like unused lines, over provision plans, billing errors, leaked spend that accumulates month after month, and time costs. That's hours spent tracking answers, reconciling data, managing incidents that should have never happened. Then there's that leadership confidence cost, and that's huge, right? And here's what it looks like. An executive asks questions, and answers are slow or uncertain or incomplete, or maybe they don't ever get their answer. And then trust erodes. And that's a huge problem. So organizations that design for visibility and ownership reduce incident costs and resolution time significantly. I'll say that again. It's about designing. So organizations that design for visibility and ownership, they reduce incident costs and resolution time significantly. All right. And like I said, we're wrapping it up. We're going to talk a little bit very quickly about designing for clarity. So, complexity is not going to go away. It's just like when people started getting tired of change until they realized that change was not going away. You've got to adapt because complexity is not going away. But clarity can be intentionally designed. I have 3 actions for you this week that will help you tremendously. And I want you to complete this week. So when we go into next week, you're ready to kind of build upon this. One is I want you to audit one blind spot. Pick one area where visibility is the weakest. Identify what you don't know and why. Okay. 2, clarify one ownership gap. Choose one process where accountability is unclear. Define who owns that decision. Make sure you know it. And then 3, document one handoff. I want you to identify one workflow that frequently breaks down and map it out. Make the unclear steps explicit. Work it out now before you have to. Okay? This helps you start. And even if you start small, it's okay. Just please do start. As I mentioned, you've got a QR code on your screen, and you'll see it on the next screen. So you're able to scan that. Again, if you like the full framework behind this conversation, I want you to scan it and download the 2026 playbook. It expands on everything we've covered over the first 2 weeks and everything we're going to cover over the next 6 weeks. So here is my takeaway. Clarity is not accidental. It is designed, right? Next week, we're going to move from diagnosis to design. What does a best in class mobility model actually look like? And that's where we're headed. So, we're going to talk about what does that world class, that best in class mobility model look like? And if your model doesn't match it, it's going to be a great opportunity to reassess and look at where you can make some improvements. And I'm happy to help in any way that I can with that. So until next week, building clarity. As always, let's make it make sense.